Hello there, and welcome back to War Thunder, to the first impressions on the IJN heavy cruiser, the Kako. Now, you already will ask yourself the question, why do we actually make a video about this ship when you already made a complete review on the IJN Furutaka? Because this ship is the 1935 version of the first iteration of the Furutaka class, if you will, and the Furutaka itself is then the 1942 version. And too much actually doesn't really change at first glance on the ship. You still have 6 8-inch guns, you still have a lot of torpedoes, and your anti-aircraft defenses are still a tragedy by themselves. But the game experience is a complete different story because of so many factors that I think it is worth showing you this with 3 separate gameplays, and then go through all the arguments bit by bit, and then coming to the final verdict that this ship is actually fun and we must not tell Gaijin about this. Otherwise the nerf fun police comes in and ruins yet another ship while not really addressing the actual issues that ruin so many other ships. So you already see where this is going, right? But I am really happy to present you this ship, and I have the gameplays to back up my claims and to show you what maybe this should be, you know, how it might be really working out, and how 8-inch guns can really shine versus the array of 6-inch batteries of other nations' ships. So I hope you stay with me for this little discussion and can enjoy absolutely me wrecking the enemy team, not once but in 3 separate battles. So let's begin to talk about the guns, and the main difference is that you have on paper, to which we just come in just a moment, a reload of 15.2 seconds. So that's right between the Furutaka's best reload and the Krasnikovka's best reload of 15.0 and 15.4 seconds respectively. But in battle, and this is one of the main aspects why this ship is just so much better, it's closer to 8 seconds. And that has to do with the first ready rack ammunition storage of, I guess, 10 salvos, at least that's what the X-ray tells me. So I'm not quite sure what is wrong, if it is the stat card or if it is indeed Gaijin screwing up the reload of the ship. Either way, I'm not prepared to tell Gaijin about this, and so I am just curiously sitting here in my chair observing how long it will take for Gaijin to figure out by themselves and adjusting one way or the other. And this reload already now delivers twice the DPM than the Furutaka, which not only sits at 0.3 battle rating higher, but always has to deal with Brooklyns and Kirovs. This ship doesn't. Well, sometimes you have, and then it's just a lost battle despite having twice the DPM, because it's then still so much lower than the Brooklyn and Kirov. But either way, it is fantastic, and you can see the effectiveness of 8-inch shells. Talking about the 8-inch shells, on paper they look worse. And now let me talk you through. First of all, the stock HE shell has 6.86 kilograms of TNT equivalent, not 8.17 like the Furutaka. So the HE shell is less effective. And then you have only, as a tier 1 upgrade, the second shell type and last shell type, which is the 203mm type 88 APC. While it has the same penetration values against any sort of distance and angle than the APCB shell that the APBC shell that the Furutaka has, you have also less TNT equivalent, 2.67 kilograms of bursting charge compared to the 3.1 kilograms that the Furutaka has. And yet, because you don't have to shoot at Kirovs and or Brooklyns, those 8-inch shells still deliver a whole lot of pain towards the enemy. And I think then the other factor comes in, that you retain this DPM longer because your turrets don't get knocked out. And even if a turret gets knocked out, it's not a big deal because you lose 1/6 of your firepower and not 1/3 per lost turret. So you can see where this is going. On paper, many arguments point towards this ship having less combat value, if you will, than the Furutaka, but in practice, it shows again that Gaijin that Gaijin devs are not playing their own game, and if they are playing it, they're playing not there where they need to play to come across the issues that bug this game. So it's just a never-ending repetitive story of the same arguments over years. And there are many things that need to change in Naval Forces, to which I made multiple videos about and talked excessively about. So much so that not a lot of people are talking my videos because they think that they know already where every single video is going. Which to a certain degree can be true, but very often it is a ship that is just a hidden gem, and I think with the current meta, accepting it and hoping for the best to change something in the future with decompression and game mechanics working properly and historical facts being kind of an argument for implementing the ships, because in a nutshell currently we have the problem of the air RP, the tank RP, and also the ship RP not being balanced and also not being historically accurate, right? So with that as a problem, we just have to either not play the game, or we just try to get the maximum out of what we can play and try to avoid some of the worst ships, which is the IJN Furutaka currently at 5.7, and we try to enjoy the ships that are actually able to deal with that kind of meta, and that is the 5.3, 7 years older ship, if you will, the IJN Kako. And that one is just a completely different game experience. It is fun. It is depending on your skill. If you play it right, you can absolutely wreck enemy ships like there is no tomorrow, and that is just simply fun. But you also can receive a lot of pain very quickly if you get focus fired, if you receive a lucky shot from an enemy. You can lose your ammo rack and your turret still quickly, but it's not as fragile and it's not as frustrating to play as the Furutaka, and that is why we must not tell Gaijin about this. Technically with this video I do, but still, hey, that's what we have to do. And when you look at the review of the Furutaka, the verdict was not really that desirable to get this ship, right? But this one is, and it is cheaper and it is more fun and lower battle rating. And so if you look here at this ship, which is a German light cruiser, I guess it's the Köln, then you see it performs at a very different level. It has base use HE, it has a faster rate of fire, it has probably better armor and more DPM. And yet, because I'm staying more at range, and it is more or less a 1 versus 1, me picking the right ammunition and doing the right aim can result just in me winning this duel. But it's not like I'm completely immune, you know. I'm not completely bullshitting this guy despite killing him with this salvo, like I would sit in a Kirov or a Brooklyn. And yes, those ships are undoubtedly too strong for their battle rating. So at the end, it is fun. Now let's briefly talk through the other aspects of the ship. The armor is more or less the very same as on the Furutaka, so it is not really that convincing. You burn a lot, you flood a lot, and it is not that difficult to hit the citadel and also the magazines. But it's not like on some other of the, how should I say it, it's not as easy as some of the two earliest cruisers for the Royal Navy, for example. The other thing is the anti-aircraft firepower. It is exactly the same as on the Furutaka. So you're looking at 4 120mm guns with the exact same amount of ammunition and type of ammunition, but there we have a dedicated flak shell. But it's only, you know, 2 guns per side. It's not really equipped with proximity fuse shell, which it would need. And you know, the small caliber guns are then 2 twin 25mm type 96 cannons, and they are tragedy by itself. Then we have to talk about the torpedoes, and the torpedo might be the most visible main difference, because while you still have the same caliber with 610mm, those are the type 8 number 2 wet heated torpedoes. You have an astonishing amount of 24 of them, but they are far from the performance and the usability of the long lances, the Type 93s. First of all, with the Torpedo mod, you also have a distance of 20 kilometers, which sounds amazing. Then you also have a reduced speed of 50 kilometers per hour, and the warhead is not that heavy with a TNT equivalent of 325.24 kilograms. So 325 kilos. That is still a lot, but it's not like half the ton that the Type 93 delivers. Currently, that's not really the main difference. And again, you have more of them. Without the Torpedo mod, the travel distance halves to only 10 kilometers. But therefore, you have then a faster speed of 70 kilometers per hour. But still, that is not even coming close to the 93 kilometers per hour that the long lances deliver. The difference to the Furutaka is that you have more launches per side, and they are single tube launches and they are fixed, so you have to aim with the entirety of the ship and you have to give exact complete broadside to launch them, and you cannot launch all of them at the same time. So you can launch 6 of them at once, and then it is reload. So then you have to go through a reload. And yeah, that is just something that you have to get used to. The torpedoes are not as good. You have more of them. It's a trade-off, and but they are really unusable most of the time for me personally, especially when it comes to the map design. Then you have to beat yourself to get the firing angles done. Watch that one single shell. Oh, that was nasty. That was nasty. So the anti-aircraft guns are not good. They are in fact slightly worse. The torpedoes are arguably worse despite having more of them, but they are not the long lances. The firepower doesn't look better on paper. The shells are not as good, so the AP and the AG both have not as much TNT in them, and on paper the reload is not as good, and you don't have more guns. However, again, as a final verdict, you have the single mountings. When one turret gets knocked out, it is only losing a sixth of your firepower compared to losing a third of your firepower compared to the Furutaka when one turret gets knocked out. And those turrets don't get knocked out as often despite their armor protection being the same. I have no idea why that is. Might it be luck? Might it be just, well, my experience and everybody else has a different experience? Might it the turrets being smaller each, and so I have more misses if somebody actually tries to go for the turret array? I have no idea. Maybe a lot of people don't recognize the ship and don't really know how to take it on. But most of the time it is just a simple fact that you don't have to fight Brooklyns and Kirovs, which just out DPM you and out damage you and out alpha strike you, if you will. And so the reduced battle rating, then also the faster reload, somewhere between 7.5 and 8 seconds. I did with a stopwatch for at least 10 salvos, makes the ship just so much more effective and so much more fun, so much more rewarding, and reduces the frustration to a minimum where you can say, well, it's not actually that much worse than any other cruiser in the game. So when it comes to the desirability of grinding through the Japanese tech tree with your premiums and having to endure the pain with the destroyers, I still have to figure out how the patrol boats are. It's the hidden gem. It's not the Furutaka that's the most desirable ship, it's the IJN Kako that is just so much more fun and so much more effective, and keeps the effectiveness throughout the battle. Despite being on paper very similar, the game experience is completely different, and this is what I try to deliver to you with this video. I know sometimes I get into the rambling, but sometimes it is so difficult to explain the bigger picture. I could say, yes, it's the faster reload and maybe this is bugged by Gaijin, and yes, you have a lower battle rating and that's why the ship is so effective, but how exactly that plays out, with all the other details being brought in as well, as you know, a complete picture in a comparison to the Furutaka, to which I made a complete review with a 5-minute guide by Drokinifel, to which I happily invite you to watch. You know, there are so many aspects to discuss here. So it is also pretty difficult to show a single scene or a single game and get the full picture of a ship, because it depends on the map, it depends on the battle rating, your opponents, the combat distances, a little bit the RNG. But if you see this result throughout 3 battles, and you can see where the effectiveness is going, how much more fun I personally had. Well, you can see me having fun, but you can imagine with the amount of kills and me being able to continue the fire, this is not cherry picking the gameplay over the course of a week. This is what I managed to get in 2 days, and most of the time I was really tired and not playing that many battles. So I can tell you it was much easier to get the video done with this one, and I only had to play like 6 battles, and 3 of them were worthy for YouTube to be shown, in my opinion. And where I had to play nearly a week, the Furutaka, to get the battles that you saw in that review. That was cherry picking. This is more or less showing the good games, but not the very extreme best games that I had to acquire over the course of 1 week. Many of the aspects that I just talked about sound too good to be true, and already you might think, oh my god, this ship is just overpowered, just admit it and we can go on not playing naval forces. But it's a little bit different than this. Seeing this from the other side, you still can easily knock out the guns, because they still have no real armor protection. 25mm of armor is not really that much. Even Destroyer AG can easily wreck that. You only have more turrets, which are a bit smaller. The next thing is that the torpedo threat is just not the same as from the Agano, the Kiyoshimo or the Furutaka. And also the anti-aircraft batteries are pathetic. So you are easy prey for a YOLO rush from an American torpedo plane, right? And they can drop at very high speed, and your 2 twin 25mm are pathetic. Your 2 120mm guns without proximity fuse shells are also not that effective, and we shall see a little demonstration of that just in a moment. So this ship has many weaknesses, and also the armor protection is still not the very best, or you know, very basic, and similar to the Furutaka. So I got often wrecked with an ammo rack. I got often destroyed by just whittling the crew down if I had to face a Brooklyn and also a Kirov. And Brooklyn and Kirov have also much better armor protection, much better anti-aircraft batteries, and yeah, I think that is something that very often is overlooked. So you cannot really YOLO rush them in a torpedo plane. And so I think that the plane has an extraordinary well-balanced balance between strength and weaknesses. And that is more like naval forces should be. That you try with your own skill and gameplay and game experience to amplify the strength, like staying at range and just prioritizing the biggest threats for your team because you have the guns to do so, while trying to avoid a playstyle where you go close and throw away many of your advantages. So I don't really think that this ship is overpowered. It is just fun, and that is a dangerous statement to make, because if you make such a statement that a ship is good yet fun yet not overpowered, a lot of people go for playing this ship, go towards grinding it, and that is fine because it is that kind of hidden gem within the Japanese tech tree, as I said before. And look at this salvo, careful aim, careful distance measuring, and the shells are in the air. They're coming down. One shot. Because of this good aim. And watch this, that's a BTD-1 destroyer, but he fucked up his approach and both torpedoes drowned. Either because he was too fast, or, which is more likely, that he dropped them at a too steep angle. And so I write in chat, how did you fuck that up? Because you could see, that's a pathetic anti-aircraft firepower. That's really bad. And that's with a fully trained expert crew. Yeah, just to put things into perspective. So this is now approaching the end of the video, and let me know in the comment section what you really think about this presentation from what you see in comparison to the review that I made on the Furutaka, and also if you have experience yourself playing some of the higher battle rating cruisers, what the footage is like. And again, this was not cherry picking the footage from like playing it for a week, you know, and getting some lucky matches. That was like every second game was like this. That's amazing. It feels like worth going for the grind. Granted, I got those ships from Gaijin, but nevertheless, you know, I had fun playing those ships, and I'm looking forward playing them some more. So that is just a good statement for me to make. And as shall be demonstrated here, if you screw up your aim, you can lose easily, and I received already quite a bit of battering at the hands of some destroyers and other cruisers, and since I am not switching here to the optimal amount ammunition type, well, I just get punished by my Miro ship, the Kako, with that salvo. After 1 zone captured and 13 kills, well, I cannot complain about that one, right? So that's it now for me today. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a like if you did, subscribe if you want to see more, and we'll see each other on the battlefields, in the skies, and on the waves of War Thunder.